Okay, welcome back to the fifth video in our series of lectures on database system concepts and architecture. We're going to be talking about database languages in this episode of our discussion: data definition language, storage definition language, and so on. So why don't we use SQL as our mystery word this time? Once the design of a database is completed and the database management system is chosen to implement the database, the first step is to specify conceptual and internal schemas for the database and any mappings between the two. In many database management systems where no strict separation of levels is maintained, one language, called the data definition language, is used by the DBA and by database designers to define both schemas. The database management system will have a DDL compiler, data definition language compiler, whose function is to process DDL statements in order to identify and to store the schema description in the database management system catalog. In database management systems where there is a clear separation between the conceptual and internal levels, the data definition language is used to specify the conceptual schema only. Another language called the storage definition language, SDL, is used to specify the internal schema. The mappings between the two schemas may be specified in either one of these languages. In most relational databases today, there is no specific language that performs the role of storage definition language. For a true three-schema architecture, there would need to be a third language, a view definition language, to specify user views and their mappings to the conceptual schema. But in most database management systems, the data definition language is used for both conceptual and external schemas. In relational database management systems, SQL, standard query language, or SQL, all three terms mean the same thing. SQL is used in the role of view definition language to define user or application views as results of predefined queries. Once the database schemas are compiled and the database is populated with data, users must have some means to manipulate the database. Typical manipulations include retrieval, insertion, deletion, and modification of data. The database management system provides a set of operations or a language called the data manipulation language for these purposes. In current database management systems, the preceding types of languages are usually not considered distinct languages. Rather, a comprehensive integrated language is used that includes constructs for conceptual schema definition, view definition, and data manipulation. Storage definition is usually kept separate since it is used for defining physical storage structures to fine-tune the performance of the database system, which is usually done by the DBA and the DBA staff. A typical example of a comprehensive database language is the SQL relational database language, which represents a combination of data definition language, view definition language, and data manipulation language, as well as statements for constraint specifications, schema evolution, and other features. There is an internal standard for SQL that allows scripts to be written in this version to run on most databases today with little or no modification. There is, in fact, an international standard for SQL. Some database management systems have created their own modified versions of SQL to add additional features or to allow scripts to perform more efficiently in that environment. Applications written in one of these versions would have to be modified to run in a different environment. There are two main types of data manipulation languages. A high-level or non-procedural data manipulation language can be used on its own to specify complex database operations concisely. Many database management systems allow high-level data manipulation statements either to be entered interactively from a display monitor or a terminal, or to be embedded in a general-purpose programming language. In the latter case, data manipulation language statements must be identified within the program so that they can be extracted by a pre-compiler and processed by the database management system. A low-level or procedural data manipulation language must be embedded in a general-purpose programming language. This type of data manipulation language typically retrieves individual records or objects from the database and processes each separately. Therefore, it needs to use programming language constructs such as looping to retrieve and process each record from a set of records. Low-level data manipulation languages are also called record at a time. Casual end users typically use a high-level query language to specify their request, whereas programmers use the data manipulation language in its embedded form. For the less experienced users, there is usually a user-friendly interface for interacting with the database. These can also be used by casual users and others who do not want to learn the details of a high-level language. Why don't we take a break here, answer our mystery question, go out to coursework and check my knowledge on the material that we just covered. And then when you're ready, come on back for the final video in this series of lectures on database system concepts and architecture.